Welcome, welcome. This is the Enlightenment Show, and I'm your host, Laurie Schoenfeld. This is where Chicken Soup for the Soul meets the artist way with Nancy Drew. Our guest today is Candi Sary. Sorry, I knew I was going to do that, Candi. We'll try it again. Our guest today is Candi Sary.
Yes.
Yes. Like
Everyone says sorry, so no worries. Yeah.
We're going to be chatting with her today all about her release, Magdalena, and a relationship that's brought new life to her. Hello, lovely. How are you today?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. Thank you for being here. It is a delight to chat with you about this beautiful book, Magdalena.
Thank you.
It is October. What's one of your favorite things to do during this time of the year?
You know, I'm not a huge Halloween person, but I notice what I love about October. We have a yard that has lots of trees and bamboo, and it's spider season. So I'm totally afraid of spiders, but I'm also in awe of them. So I love waking up in the morning and going to find the big, like, you know, they start small and they just keep feeding and feeding and they grow so big. And so I walk through the yard holding a bamboo stick so I can get webs out of the way if it's in my face, but looking for spiders. That's my favorite. It's spider season. So yeah.
I really love how you brought in, Candi, that you're afraid of them, but also they intrigue you, because I think there's always layers of that for all of us. Like,
yes.
I don't want to get too close, but I do. Do I dare?
Yes. There's one in my window, my bathroom window, and it's upstairs. And so it feels very safe. I'm never going to get near it. And I just watch it reweave its web over and over each morning. And I'm enjoying the spiders. I never thought I'd say that.
The webs are beautiful too.
Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm. They're amazing. Such artists.
Yes. Very, very. It'd be fun to talk to Spider and ask what their creative process is like as they're weaving.
Right. Yes. Yes.
Can you share with our listeners and viewers what Magdalena is all about?
So Magdalena takes place in a small, secluded town that thrives on gossip and superstition, and it's known to be a ghost town. So Dottie, our protagonist, is the town outcast. She's really odd. She lives alone, doesn't talk to anyone in town. Her husband was in a terrible accident, and so he's in a vegetative state in a rest home. She had several miscarriages, so she doesn't have children, though she wished she did. And one day, 15-year-old Magdalena next door comes to her door to conjure a ghost. So Magdalena is the town sensitive. She can see and hear ghosts, and she's a very mysterious character herself. So Dottie is less intrigued with the girl's supernatural ability than with just having a real girl in her home, having longed for children for so long. So Dottie, our strange protagonist, starts to secretly pretend that Magdalena is her daughter, and it starts to heal some of her grief. But then Magdalena goes missing, and of course the whole town thinks that the outcast had something to do with it. So the novel is Dottie writing a letter to prove her innocence, to prove to everyone in town that she did nothing to harm Magdalena.
Mm-hmm. Where did you begin on this journey to create the story?
I began with a ghost story. I wanted to write a ghost story, and it was very different in the beginning. It was more Dottie having a connection with this ghost who she felt attached to because she had this horrible husband. Well, as you know, in this novel, the husband is not horrible in this version. He is a good guy, but he's just gone. This is, I conveniently set him somewhere so this could just be Dottie's story. So it started, I started writing the novel the year both my kids went off to college, and I was mourning the empty nest. And as I'm writing this, instead of the ghosts, being the main part of the story, it seemed that Dottie longing for a child turned into kind of the heart of the story. And, only after writing it and with all the mourning, and there's so much motherhood throughout it, and grief and loss, yet hope for, what happens, when you are on your own. I realized that the writing of this book was really my way to mourn the empty nest.
Mm-hmm. Tell us about your two main characters, Dottie and Magdalena, they're both very unlikely characters to come together, but both really needed each other. What did you love about both of them?
I loved how odd Dottie was. It's strange because she was really odd, and yet I found a lot of myself in her. I was just able to, bring it out in a really strange way. And Magdalena is sort of like my daughter, who I was, mourning away at school, not completely, of course, but she looks just like her. I describe her. And so she's sort of like that. And there is a little bit of our relationship in there. The part where I think generationally, how Magdalena's younger wisdom speaks to Dottie, who is maybe more set in her obedient ways. She's a little bit more, believes in what everyone told her, where Magdalena is so much more open to new ideas. And I do think my daughter does teach me those kinds of things. I love hearing what she has to say with her kind of thinking. And, in the novelty extreme of the cell phone, like just to show just how far Dottie is away from this younger generation. So there's a bit of that.
What did you learn and experience as you were writing both of their character arcs that changed your perspective?
What did I learn? I think I learned so much from every character, in that I go in just being open to them, and then I want them to do things. And so I'll sometimes, I'm convinced that writer's block is making your character do something they don't want to do. I just couldn't go forward. And then sometimes I would just let go and just be like, okay, what do you need to do? So I think I learned from them. I learned about healing through Dottie, because, I watched her in this, terrible situation where I'm just, mourning the empty nest. She had a lot to deal with, but she got through, and she found her voice. She turned to writing, which I'm sure, I know where that came from. Yeah, I kind of learned to heal, and I think I just enjoyed being with them. Just the time with them was so comforting.
Mm-hmm. When you were writing the story, how did having your characters with you support you to move through this time of grief in your own life?
I felt like they were with me all the time. And I started writing almost 30 years ago. In some ways, I can get anxiety. I get really anxious, and I'm a worrier. I'm a natural worrier. So when my kids were young, I'm, as a mom, you can lay in bed thinking, okay, this, all these things that you worry about. But what I noticed when I write, when I have a novel in my head and I'm working through it, I could get all that anxious energy and put it toward those characters. So I could worry about them. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like my brain needs something to chew on. So instead of chewing on my life, I can chew on, Dottie and Magdalena. And if I in bed and I can't sleep at night and I'm worrying about something, I can say, okay, what does this plot line need to do? What is this character? And then I'll just go to them. And so, do you understand that?
I do. Yeah. And when I wrote Little Owl, it was putting a lot of my fears into the characters, because there was a lot of anxiety and fear I was going through at that time that I wanted to investigate, but I couldn't alone. With them, I could.
Yes. Yeah. Or through them. So it's not so personal, it feels like it's sort of indirect, and it's easier to, maybe confront something indirectly.
Yes. Yes. So we kind of talked about this a little bit before the show, but I'd love to talk about it with our guest, that you had 6 books that you wrote previous to this book. Kind of tell us about your writing journey.
Yes. So I started when my kids were babies, and I figured I wouldn't be very good to start. So I thought I'll get practice. And I didn't realize how much practice I would need. I wrote 6 novels that I submitted, and, none were ever picked up by a publisher. And they taught me a lot, though. And I entered contests, and I would make the final. So it sort of built my resume a little bit. So the 7th novel was actually my novel, Black Crow, White Lie. And that in 2012 was released. And then, so it was a good, it was a real tiny publisher. And so it was a good first experience, to see what this world is like, to actually have readers read my book instead of, that sort of lonely, all those years just writing and keeping it in my head. And it was really exciting getting readers. And so then this one came next.
Mm-hmm. Now, on your journey, we often, especially we have a lot of guests that listen that are looking to become a published writer and author.
Mm-hmm.
What is something along your journey that you wish someone had told you?
I think one of the biggest things I think about those 6 novels that I wrote, when I was done with my first draft, I submitted. And what I didn't know was that the first draft is never good enough. With my 7th novel, so Black Crow, White Lie, I rewrote. And every time I would get feedback, I would rewrite again. And it went through so many rewrites. And that's why I think it finally got clean enough. And Magdalena as well, 2 years writing it, and then probably 5 years with rewrites, submitting and just understanding it. And then when you're so immersed in the novel, it so well, you can start seeing what needs to be done and getting an editor. So you get outside feedback. That's super important because you can't always see it with your own eyes. So yeah, the rewrites, that's where the magic is.
Yes. And did you feel like for you get to know your characters and yourself better as you're doing the edits and the rewrites?
Yes. So there's levels. I feel like the first draft, like I'm working on my next novel. I'm about, 2 or 3 years into it. And I still don't 100% understand her motivation. I'm almost near the end, but I have maybe 3 chapters, but I can't end it because I don't know it yet. So I keep going back to the beginning and adding layers. You know what I'm saying? Where you feel like there are those layers to make sense, because that first draft, can be a little one-dimensional. It needs to fill out and feel real.
Yes, absolutely. In Magdalena, Sam's town, for the setting, evokes a lot of emotion. Where did you draw from to create this town?
So I sort of drew from my hometown. I grew up in a small town. It's not the same, but there were landslides there on the cliff. And so I drew from that. But I also, my daughter read that early draft of the novel. She was in film school at the time. And so we, would share stories and talk, and I was brainstorming with her. She had read the beginning and didn't like a lot of things, and so told me which part she did. So we talked for about 3 hours, and she was very visual because she was into movies and stuff. And we kept talking about this foggy town. And I really think that conversation did so much to really build up the visuals and to make it so real to me. And then just being there, so I listen to a lot of music. After I write, I always go for a walk and I listen to like a playlist, for the novel. And I love the band The Killers. And the Killers were huge in this novel because Brandon Flowers' sort of haunting, longing voice was just the perfect sound. After I'd write, I'd go for a walk and just listen and kind of immerse myself in the feel of the novel and work through things in my head. And his voice was just so haunting and longing. And he just took me right into Sam's Town. In fact, Sam's Town is the name of one of their albums and songs. So that's where the title even came from, because I was so inspired. And there's a ton of nods throughout the novel from their songs.
I love how you bring in music, because that does definitely just draw in that whole different feel for the reader. to now read the book and then also go listen to the song and get that vibe of what it was like for you sitting there writing your characters.
Yes. Yeah. No, music, and I still listen. I always look for clues in music. I sort of like, I play games with myself. Like, you know, if I have something I'm looking for, you know, an idea in a novel, I'll listen to music and I'll find a lyric and think, oh, there's a clue there. It's telling me where to go. And so, yeah.
That's the Nancy Drew part of you right there, Candi. I just got it.
Exactly.
In your book, I love how you speak to grieving the death of the living. Have you personally experienced that in your life?
Somewhat. What's interesting is as a young kid, I was really afraid of death because we lived in that small town where my parents, you know, they'd always be going to a wedding, a baptism, a funeral. And while I didn't have someone close to me pass away, the idea of death was around. And I was so scared as a kid, you know, thinking if I lost someone, could they come back to me? And so ghost stories were always a comfort to me. I didn't like the scary ones. I've never liked the scary ghost stories. I stay away from those, but I love the comforting idea of that. So it always stuck with me. So when I did lose people, as an adult, I always look for signs. And of course, I believe I see them, and not them, but the signs, you know, things they believe. And, you know, so it just comforts me, helps me through the fear of death.
Mm-hmm. Is there something that you have lost or someone that you wish to bring back?
Oh, yeah. A good friend, yes, who passed away years ago. Yes, I would like, and I have these really vivid dreams. And sometimes it feels that he's there, you know, we were really good friends with him and his wife. And I have these dreams, my husband and me and him and his wife, and they're so real. It feels like we're all together again, you know?
Mm-hmm. I love, and I have lemons here, of the object of a lemon, Candi. It was amazing to me how every time you brought the lemon into your story, I got that sense of wanting to speak to someone I love that I can't anymore. And but I could also smell it. And I could also taste the lemon in my mouth. Like, it was a whole experience. Why did you choose lemons for that?
What's funny is I started just because I had this vision of Magdalena bringing a bag of lemons. It was so simple. It didn't even have purpose in the beginning, but the visual is so strong and I liked it so much. I thought, I've got to make this work. And then, I mean, over time, and why in the end it's lemons, it came to me so late, but it just felt like I knew I was on a path, and I just kind of stuck with it. And I love tastes and smells, like bringing those into novels, because you know what, I have a really strong sense of smell, strong sense of taste, you know, so to me, it's like such a big part of, you know, living. And so if you can do that in a novel, I love the experience.
Well, well done. I will never look at a lemon the same.
Thank you.
Have you personally ever been haunted, or did you have something haunt you either physically or metaphorically?
Okay, so haunted, no, but I feel, so the friend I was talking about who passed away, after my friend called me to tell me he passed away, our smoke alarm went off. It went off randomly. So I'm like, okay. And I know ghosts can, you know, deal with electricity because they're an energy. Then the first Father's Day he was gone landed on my friend's birthday. The smoke alarm went off again. And there were 2 other occasions where it was really strange. So, you know, I have that. I have a friend, an elderly friend, my neighbor, we were really close. And I believe he sent me pennies all the time. And so, you know, there's all these, there's all these like signs. And my dog passed away recently. So I don't know if dogs can, but it was so hard. He was just my favorite. And my closet light turned on the morning after he passed. And so was like, could it be, So I don't know. These could be coincidences, but I choose to believe that they're signs.
Mm-hmm. Are they pieces of hope that you're holding?
Yes.
To?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I'm so sorry about your dog. They're a big part of your heart.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What is a relationship that's brought new life to you?
A relationship, not with a character. You mean a person?
Just with you in your life, or it could be a character.
Well, characters have maybe, I live in a house that has a lake nearby, and we have a bunch of ducks, and they show up every morning, and something about them, when they come, they're just so sweet. And so, well, not always, they're kind of mean to each other, but there's this innocence about them, where it's not just people, because I have my dog, my cat, I love those relationships, but these ducks, they don't have to come, but they come all the time. And sometimes I'm just comforted by just how sweet and awkward and simple they are. And they just make me so happy. So there's a relationship.
I love ducks. They are like a whole experience. They are.
They are.
Yeah, just they seem like, again, if they could talk, like the personalities that they seem to just have by their body language is special.
Yes. They're so great.
What would you want your readers to take away as a message from your book?
I'm not sure they need a message. I'd like them to take, if they do, I think there are messages in there that can be taken, but I think for each person, I'd love for them to take away an experience, to feel maybe what it is to be an outcast, and to understand, maybe, I don't know, just some understanding, even the idea of buttons. Magdalena's grandmother, she's the cranky old lady that everyone doesn't like, but then you learn her story and you learn, oh, she's cranky for a reason. She's had difficulties as well. So maybe just some understanding. I feel like, we go to judgment right away. We all do. I mean, I do all the time. And yet when you learn more, you realize, there's more to the story,
Mm-hmm. I would love to talk about that too for a second, with the misunderstandings, because there's so much truth there, that there's a lot of misunderstandings that we just don't know, but we put on other people without knowing the whole depth of everything behind the scenes.
Yes.
What's something that was a misunderstanding in the book with Dottie? And then what's also something that you feel is a misunderstanding about yourself?
Oh, a misunderstanding about me. That is so good. What do I think? It's funny because I used to always feel very misunderstood. I think when I used to write, it's funny because, I was a mom and I was with the kids. I did a lot of mom stuff. I'm very playful. I'm very, simple in my life. And yet I go home and I write novels, and there's this place in my brain where I just this place I love that no one knew about. And when people would ask me, what do you do? I used to always feel so timid, because I wasn't published yet. I hated saying I was a writer, but I say I write. And immediately they say, oh, you write children's books. And it was so interesting because it's like, no, I'm very simple. I'm very cheerful, but I mean, and children's books are amazing. They're difficult to write, of course, but it was interesting that people just assumed that I am 100% for children. That's just what I do, So it was like, no, I actually kind of write some dark stuff, I had no idea, So maybe that.
High five, sister. Yep.
Do you feel that too?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I got a few looks when I talked that I was writing psychological thrillers, and they're like you kill people in your novels. And I'm like, I sure do. And they were like, you could just see the look on their face. Like, my view of you has totally changed. You look so friendly and playful in person, but you like to kill people in your novels.
My mom used to read all my first drafts, and you know, after about the sixth one day she's like, Candi, did I do something wrong? You know, it was so dark. I'm like, no, no, no. It was a great childhood. I just love exploring other things, you know?
Yeah. With that said, we're going to take it to the inner child question segment. Are you ready, Candi?
I'm ready.
Okay. First question. When you were a kid, what was something you didn't understand that you now understand?
Oh gosh, so many things. Sometimes like think about what I thought when I was a kid. Like for example, when I listened to I loved music all the time. I would listen to music and I would sing all the lyrics. And as an adult now, I'll listen to songs and think, oh my gosh, that's what they were talking about. No clue, no clue. So yeah.
It's like it's got a good beat, you know?
Yeah, and it was great. And I'd sing it to the top of my lungs, having no clue that, wow, okay. So yeah, it's interesting I love listening to old music. So it's interesting to listen now through adult eyes or ears.
Under the roof doesn't mean what you thought it meant. As a teenager, what was the most rebellious thing that you did?
I was so not rebellious. It was, gosh, I was like just such a rule follower in general. I mean, gosh, what did I do?
So you were like Dottie.
There's a lot of me and Dottie. Yes. I mean, went to Catholic school. I just felt the need to be very, you know, good and, you know, I didn't want to go to hell. So I was, you know, I mean, of course, I'm sure I did some things, you know, small things yeah, but in general, I was pretty obedient.
So is your daughter more like Magdalena with the rebelliousness? Is that what we're...
Not necessarily rebellious, but I think raising her, I could tell she's much more of a free spirit. And I knew she wouldn't be like me. And I was like, happy that she wouldn't be just like me. I wanted her to be her. So, you know, we gave her room and she, you know, took the room she needed. And yeah, she's definitely different from me. So I think there is, you know, that dynamic there where I kind of admire that, you know, yeah, she's different than me.
Our kids teach us a lot, just like we teach them. They teach us too.
Yes, they do. They do.
Third question, Candi, what is the oddest food combo that you've liked and tried or you've just tried?
I eat so simple. But you know what I did? I don't know if this is odd, maybe. So I love dried mango and I dipped it in peanut butter because I love peanut butter.
Ooh.
But what's interesting is, you know, that sounds maybe a little odd, but when you taste it, the fruitiness of peanut butter, it's kind of like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich with no bread. Do you know what I mean? It really has that like, oh, peanut butter, but a little bit of fruitiness. So it was really good.
I am like, okay, so that's so interesting. Because I'm like, okay, I can see an orange or a mandarin with chocolate, done that. Not sure if the peanut butter and the citrus is going to work because they're both very dominant taste. Okay. But when you said that, I'm like, well, of course, because jelly, you know, there's peach and there's tangerine and there's raspberry jelly.
Yes.
Okay.
So you'll have to let me know if you try it.
Oh, right. Now, what would you call this delicious appetizer?
Oh, gosh. Breadless peanut butter and, well, it's not quite jelly. I have to think on that.
Get back to us. And those who want to try this appetizer with me, take pictures and we'll send all of this to Candi. Before we end today, Candi, can you share with our listeners and viewers what living a creatively abundant life means to you?
I think for me, it's staying curious and paying attention, you know, to everything from, you know, taking the time to watch a spider weave her web because there's such creativity in there and keeping that sense of wonder, you know, that we had as kids and the sense of magic, you know? So I feel like in my ordinary life, if I can keep that alive, it just comes into my writing. It's there. It's, you know, also I think being with other writers, I am in a writers group. We started like over 10 years ago. And again, like I used to feel so lonely not knowing writers. And then when I met some in the area, we started gathering people and we have this group. We meet once a month at night. And we don't even bring writing. I have critique groups, but this one we don't bring writing. We just talk. We talk about things writers like to talk about. And you realize you go to a regular social gathering and not everyone has that kind of, you know, not everyone has invisible people living in their minds that they're constantly, you know, dealing with. So it's just kind of fun to have those types of people around to make you feel less lonely in that creativity, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. What are some projects that you're currently working on right now that you can talk about?
I am working on my next novel. I'm about 2 years into it, and it's another ghost story. It has a main character that's a crow again. It's been really fun, and this one I'm trying to figure out what is motivating me to write this one. You know, like the last one, when I was done, I realized, oh, the empty nest. This one, I think it's, you know, there's homeless people in here who the main character befriends as she searches for what it means to have a home to her. It's, yeah. So I don't know how to explain it very well yet, but it's been interesting exploring all these themes.
Where can our listeners and viewers find Magdalena or reach out to you if they have any questions?
Magdalena is available anywhere you buy books. And to reach out to me, I'm at candisary.com, CANDISARY.com. And I'm on Instagram. I don't get on Facebook very often, but I do have an Instagram account where, you know, I post all the books I read and just kind of reader stuff.
Thank you so much for joining us today. It has been an absolute pleasure talking to you about Magdalena.
Thank you. It was wonderful.
And thank you for all of those who've joined us live and will join on the replay. Remember, as you go about the rest of your week, to find the things that are working for you. You are the creator of your own story. What steps will you take next? We'll see you right here on Thursday at 12 o'clock p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Candi.
Thank you.